Hello everyone, this is Professor Q. This video is the second part to If he does these things, you're being abused. The abuser usually begins to slowly groom or condition their victim early in the relationship. At that early point, he is observing and feeling you out to see the best way to engage you. He's smart enough to know the same approach doesn't work with all women. If he's successful, he'll soon see if you'll tolerate very small incidents at first. It's usually not enough to make a woman run the other direction, never to see him again. This could be raising his voice, calling too much when he knows it's a bad time, asking where you've been or going, etc. This doesn't seem too out of bounds, but it is. He's seeing what's the beginning of going too far. The abuser apologizes and attempts to be very affectionate, pays attention and gives compliments, shares how he loves or cares so very much about you, and he's never done anything like that before. Promises to do better, and it will never happen again, asks, or even begs for forgiveness, and often gives some type of gift. If the abuser can manipulate you into staying, he knows you are not likely to leave if he begins to move on with other abuse. There are so many steps to grooming or conditioning that abuser uses various skills, approach us, and emotions, and I will address them in several videos. Now, let's talk about just a few kinds of abuse. Yes, there are several, and all are illegal. This issue is so important but overlooked that I address it in several of my videos. We've talked about physical abuse, but there is also emotional abuse. This is interesting because it is very powerful without even becoming physical or leaving physical evidence. It's the use of words to control and tear you down. Someone who can manipulate very well can also convince friends and even family members that you are lying, manipulating, or out of touch with reality. They can be very effective at influencing others, even including the victim's own children. You might not think that could possibly happen, but all too often, it does. This causes the victim to feel even more alone, isolated, unloved, and without support. Feelings of self-blame for the violent, failing relationship begins to be shouldered by the victim. Of course, we're familiar with sexual abuse. However, the most important component that's been added to the law is the necessity for you to give clear consent without any influence or pressure. Someone can say yes all day long about giving sex, but if they are under the influence of alcohol or drugs, or is a minor child, is not mentally or emotionally able to understand what sex entails, or uses verbal threats, these are forms of abuse. Therefore, the victim is not giving clear consent. If your abuser shows up at times and places without your consent and knowledge, this could be considered stalking. If there is an uncomfortable feeling that you never know when and where he will show up, it's causing you to have additional stress. Constantly calling or harassing you online, sending cards or letters, flowers, or gifts are all examples of abuse if you have made it clear you want this stopped and it's not acceptable. Emotional, controlling, and isolating are further forms of abuse. You have a right to a safe, healthy, and happy life. Everything we've talked about in this video is used by abusers to do the opposite. If you're dealing with someone who is trying to control you, it can end up taking away joy and forces you to live in fear, hopelessness, and depression. But this certainly does not have to be the case. This is Professor Q. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again